In the year 1948, a stark announcement appeared in a Chicago yard belonging to Ray and Lucille Chalifoux. The family faced eviction and Ray, a coal truck driver, was without work. The public notice declared their 4 children were for sale. A newspaper in nearby Valparaiso, Indiana, reported on the family's plight on August 5th. The newspaper account identified the children by name and age: Lana, 6 years old, and Ray, 5 years old. Younger siblings Milton, 4, and Sue Ellen, 2, were also listed. Reports from the time noted that the mother, Lucille Chalifoux, who was pregnant, averted her attention from the proceedings. The children were described as having expressions of wonder or confusion about the situation unfolding. Subsequently, family members alleged that Lucille had accepted payment to arrange the scene documented by the newspaper. Whether staged for money or not, the intent behind the sign proved devastatingly real. Within a span of 2 years, all 4 children, along with the infant Lucille carried during that summer of 1948, were separated from their parents. They ended up in different homes. Milton's path led to a harsh upbringing. He endured beatings, starvation, and other forms of abuse. As he grew older, these experiences manifested in periods of intense anger. His behavior eventually led to a judicial ruling. Deemed a societal menace, Milton was compelled to choose between a reformatory and a mental hospital. He spent years in the latter institution. For a long time, the siblings lost track of Lana and Sue Ellen. Their whereabouts remained unknown to the brothers. Years later, the advent of social media provided a means for reconnection. Through these platforms, they learned about their sisters' lives. It was discovered that Lana had passed away from cancer in 1998. Sue Ellen Chalifoux, however, was found alive. Sue Ellen had spent her childhood not far from her original home, growing up on Chicago's East Side. Her feelings towards her biological mother were unequivocally bitter, expressing a wish for her damnation. Lucille Chalifoux, the woman who relinquished her first 5 children, eventually remarried. She went on to raise 4 more daughters with her new husband. Later in life, some of the children she had sold sought her out. Accounts of these reunions describe Lucille as displaying no discernible affection or regret regarding her past actions. David McDaniel, one of the children born after Lucille remarried, offered a defense for her perceived coldness. He suggested it stemmed from the harsh realities of a different, more difficult era. McDaniel recounted his first meeting with his biological mother, nodding her immediate comment on his resemblance to his father. He stated she never offered an apology, framing her choices as acts of survival in desperate times. He posited that perhaps she acted out of a grim necessity, believing separation was better than starvation. He urged against judgment, emphasizing shared humanity and fallibility. Milton held a sharply contrasting view of his birth mother. He maintained that she never loved him and felt profound hatred from her, citing the lack of apology as evidence of her indifference to his fate. Milton's assessment remained stark and unforgiving throughout his life. He firmly believed his mother's actions stemmed from a fundamental lack of love and care for him personally. His sister, Ray Ann, initially identified as Ray in the newspaper caption, shared some of Milton's traumatic experiences. She and Milton were reportedly sold together, ending up in the same abusive household. During this period, they faced deplorable conditions. Accounts detail them being chained in a barn and subjected to regular physical violence and forced labor by their buyer. The 5th child, the baby Lucille was pregnant with during the summer of 1948, also entered the world only to be separated from his mother. Bedford, as he was named, was sold off like his older siblings. His life, too, followed a path marked by difficulty and the consequences of that. Early separation. The siblings' lives diverged significantly after their initial placements. Sue Ellen, raised nearby, eventually built a life for herself, though she carried deep resentment towards Lucille. Milton and Ray Ann bore the scars of profound abuse, impacting their mental health and stability for decades. As events unfolded, the siblings navigated adulthood, haunted by their childhoods. The search for connection and understanding became a recurring theme in their lives. The story of the Chalafu children resonated beyond their immediate family. It served as a grim reminder of extreme poverty and desperation in post-war America, even as questions lingered about Lucille's specific motivations. Ultimately, the differing memories and interpretations among the siblings highlighted the complex, fractured nature of their shared history. Each carried a unique burden from the day their mother decided they were for sale. Rayanne, like Milton, carried the weight of profound trauma into her adult life. The abuse they suffered together created a shared, painful bond, distinct from the experiences of their other siblings. Their father, Ray Chalafu, reportedly left Lucille sometime after the initial event. His role or contact with the children after their separation seems minimal, placing the primary responsibility and subsequent focus on Lucille's actions. The later life reconnection, facilitated by modern technology, offered some solace. It allowed Sue Ellen, Milton, and Rayanne to piece together fragments of their scattered family history, though Lana's absence due to her earlier death remained a gap. Finding each other did not erase the decades of separation or the varying degrees of hardship they had individually endured. Each sibling processed the abandonment and subsequent life events differently. Milton passed away in 2013. His life remained deeply affected by the events initiated in 1948 and the abuse that followed, coloring his perspective until the end. Sue Ellen continued to live near her childhood home. Her outspoken condemnation of Lucille reflected a pain that time did not seem to heal. Throughout the era following their separation, the systems meant to protect children were far less robust than later developments. Informal arrangements and even outright sales, while shocking, occurred within a context of limited social safety nets. The Chalafu story serves as a stark example of parental desperation meeting systemic inadequacy. The consequences radiated through generations, leaving indelible marks on the lives involved. There was no simple resolution, no universally accepted narrative among the family members. The event of 1948 remained a point of pain, contention, and enduring sorrow for those directly impacted. Subsequently, details emerged about the specific circumstances following the children's separations. Milton and Rayanne were reportedly acquired by the Zoteman family, farmers known for harsh treatment. Their placement led directly to the severe abuse and forced labor that scarred their youths. This contrasted sharply with the situation of Sue Ellen, who went to live with the Johnson family. While separated from her origins, Sue Ellen's upbringing, though marked by the initial trauma, did not involve the same level of physical torment endured by Milton and Rayanne. Bedford, the youngest, was placed with yet another family, facing his own unique challenges of identity and belonging. Lana's precise path after the initial separation remained less documented for many years compared to her siblings. Her story was partially recovered only much later. During this period, the understanding of the Chalafu case evolved. What was initially framed as a sorrowful consequence of poverty gradually revealed layers involving potential exploitation, payment for the arrangement, and the grim reality of child trafficking under desperate circumstances. The psychological toll on the surviving siblings proved immense and lifelong. Issues of trust, attachment, anger, and identity persisted decades after the events of 1948. Lucille Chalafu lived until her 90s, reportedly maintaining her detached stance towards the children she gave away. Her perspective, whether rooted in survival or a lack of maternal connection, remained a source of pain for her estranged offspring. The legacy of that day in August 1948, when a sign offered children for sale, thus extended far beyond the immediate crisis. It etched a story of poverty, questionable choices, systemic failures, and the enduring, complex nature of familial trauma across generations.